theory that it was conceived as a deliberate action, which is to reduce the demand or preferences or attractiveness of a particular product or service. And in the context in which it was constructed, was actually supposed to help in a situation where you have demand outstripping supply. So in that case, it's used when demand exceeds supply, and when certain behaviors needs to be changed as a result of that. So that's just the general and generic definition of demarketing. But Ms. can you have the people mute themselves so it doesn't interfere?
So in that case, it's used when demand exceeds supply, like when certain behaviors.
All right, thank you. So when it now comes to national demarketing, and this now brings up a new dimension to it. So when a country or a nation intentionally, when I mean country now, people, intentionally or unintentionally kind of project narratives that reduces the attractiveness or preference for a particular country as it applies to the key stakeholders, investors, talents, tourists, development partners, and even the citizens of that country themselves. By this action, it actually erodes national pride, erodes brand equity in terms of, when I mean brand now, because every nation is a brand. It erodes brand equity because of those persistent negative messaging. So it just kind of goes out there and just kind of downplays everything regarding that nation. So as a result, you see the erosion in equity for the brand, for the national brand. And so when you look at that and situate it to the marketing, either from a corporate point of view and from an internal point of view, expectedly what you would expect is that employees of an organization will be the most proficient advocates of such organization, of the brands. But when in a situation, you also see them having lack of belief and all of that in the brand or in the organization. You see the marketing also from an inside out perspective. And so those actions kind of communicates mistrust, it communicates failure, it communicates incompetence, and most, crucial, hopelessness regarding that nation or that brand. And so you see that from a branding point of view and from a marketing point of view, when you're talking about building a brand, you're not building a brand because you have told people this is who you are. People perceive who they think you are, and they take that perception and run with it. So when you look at that from a marketing point of view, with negative narratives going out there, then it means that that's the perception that people get, and that's what they run away with in terms of what that country is like and what people should take out of it. And so when you look at that, perception basically drives behavior. So when they go away with that, the marketing from the negative narratives, which also results in those things I spoke earlier about, mistrust, hopelessness, and all of that, it has implication for different things. So you have investors looking at that environment and having the sense of uncertainty. Should I bring my money in or not? I'm not so sure about what these people are saying about their country. You have tourists looking at the destination with some level of concern, because it's almost like, I'm not sure what I'm going to mean. So there's low confidence in the country as a result of that. Even citizens of that country are not so much positive about the company again. And so when you look at all of that, you then have a situation where that market, some of that country is not marketable basically, because there's just so many negatives that are going around in the country, and it has implications for different things, economic implication, tourism, even self-belief from the citizens of that country, and on like that. So basically, when you look at it, when you talk about nation building or nation branding, it's mostly what people say about their countries, really. It's really about what we as Nigerians, for example, if we're to use brand Nigeria as a reference, what we say about our country that people take out and people believe, and they run with that. So those criticisms, those little things that we say that people pick out, especially in this day of globalization and social media and all of that, you see that all those things put together has contributed in weakening our brand equity as a nation. And so it raises a very important question from a marketing point of view, which is the fact that if we as Nigerians, speak negatively about our country, what do we expect others, outsiders, to perceive of Nigeria? And what do we expect them to, or how do we expect them to relate with us as a result of that? I think that gives a lot of room for thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Others outsiders to perceive of Nigeria, and what we expect them. So how do we expect them to relate with us as a result of that? You think that's
Thank you very much. That was a very beautiful. Now we have an overview of what we are looking at today. That has set the tone for this discourse. I want to go to Dr. Niliaku. Today we are here to find solutions, but we cannot have solutions without knowing how we got to where we are today. Dr. Niliaku, how do you think that we got to this situation where the issue of national demarketing has become an issue for Nigeria? And I know there are some individuals that may not be Nigerians watching it, but maybe may for Africans. How did we get to this point at this time in our history? I want us to be able to track this mindset and to be able to arrive at how this issue came around. What are the factors that have drifted us this way? Thank you very much. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. By the way, were you the one on that? Was it your image on that picture that they just showed?
Yes, sir.
On the poster.
Yes.
Okay, you look slightly different. Well, thank you very much for having me with my very dear sister, the president of Institute of Marketing. We consider this very, very important for the responsibility that it brings to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that's why when you engaged, we felt that the topic is very strategic, very timely, very relevant to the cause that we should be advancing. And that's why we are very excited. I will begin with a quote which was given by Professor Wole Soyinka in 2021. And he said, "I don't know any other way to live but to wake up every day armed with my convictions, not yielding them to the threat of danger and to the power and force of people who might despise me." If you look at this quote, it will seem to give you a kind of background to the challenge that our nation has faced over a period of time. The challenge of being despised by our own people, the challenge of the threat that we face as a people. And your question is, how did we get there? How did we get to this point? I will look at three elements. First is the issue of leadership. And I'm glad when you were giving introduction, you mentioned a number of things about leadership. John Maxwell didn't get it wrong when he said that everything rises and falls on leadership. Because over a period of time, Nigerians have suffered under poor leadership. We have not been able to get our leadership right. We have not been able to do things properly because of the way our leaders have led the nation. And as a result of that, the people, the citizens, developed some measure of resentment against the country. Not because they don't love Nigeria, not because they don't appreciate Nigeria, but as a way of expressing their disappointment to lack of expected progress and development. So you see that somehow they now see themselves competing against their nation, standing against their nation. And this has gone on for a long time. And it has gotten to a point that they are continually bombarding their nation in a manner that ought not to be. That's number one. Number two is the unconscious action that arises from what has happened over a period of time. Because sometimes psychologists will tell you that when lies are told consistently over a period of time, it could transform into what looks like truth. It may not be the truth, but it begins to give an impression as though it is the truth. So we've been on this trajectory over a long period of time that it has now become fashionable to take some positions. Number three is we have not manned the reputation gate of Federal Republic of Nigeria over a long period of time. We have left our reputation gate unmanned. In other words, people say what they like about the nation. People post what they like about the nation. And the interesting thing is that these things posted against Nigeria that have become elements of the marketing are actually done by Nigerians. Nigerians are the ones giving the international community, as it were, what they use against us. If you want to do any research about Nigeria, particularly on negative implications, just Google, you'll be shocked the quantum of what you are going to receive against Nigeria. So we have not manned the reputation gate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria over a period of time. And that's why for us in the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, we established the Nigeria Reputation Management Group to take responsibility for manning the reputation gate because it has been left unmanned over a period of time. Number four, when you don't take responsibility for the quality of communication that comes out of a nation, the tendency is that sometimes it becomes reactive. And what comes immediately after this is when the communication apparatus of a nation becomes more confusing than more convincing, it creates problems. Sometimes we have found ourselves in situations where those charged with the responsibilities of communicating Nigeria counter communicate. While Mr. A is saying this, Mr. B is saying something else. Yet both of them are speaking for the same organization. Take the Federal Republic of Nigeria as an example, where you have multiplication of spokespersons. At some point, you will observe that they were speaking against each other. Of course, it has reduced tremendously now, but this is what has happened over a period of time. And I'm glad that you talked about culture. What is culture? Culture is a people's way of life. So how did this emerge to become a cultural thing? We are in a situation where we've not been able to trust ourselves as a nation. So you find out that we are always, as it were, at each other's necks. We are looking for The person from the east fighting the person from the north. The person from the north fighting the one from the south. The one from the south quarreling with the one from the west. We have not been able to build a cohesive nation. That's why sometimes when people say that our founding fathers did this or did that, I tell them that Nigeria is yet to have founding fathers. We have those who helped us to liberate ourselves from the colonialists. So to that extent, we have liberation fathers, but Nigeria is yet to be founded. And because we are yet to found ourselves, we are still in that level of mistrust. We don't trust ourselves. So it's as if everybody is competing to be the person that will undo the other. And then we keep projecting the things that do not add value about our nation. And this is very unfortunate. So, what do we have to do? I know we'll be coming to that, but I just want to emphasize when a nation does not take responsibility to brand and rebrand itself, you leave yourself open for everybody to brand you the way they want to brand you. And that is the greatest challenge. Like I said earlier, over a long period of time, we have not taken the issue of national reputation as a core asset that must be protected. Yes, there have been some attempts in the past. I remember that Dora Konyele came up with the Good People, Great Nation campaign. Chukwuemeka Chikele, as Minister of Information, later succeeded by Frank Nweke Jr., came up with the Heart of Africa campaign. But you know, these campaigns have not been sustainable. This campaign has not been sustainable. So each person comes, tries his own, and then goes on. And the reality is that so long as these campaigns are run by government, it will not yield the desired result because people hardly trust government. They always believe that there is something fundamentally fishy about whatever it is that government is doing. And that's why we are promoting the concept of professionalizing the campaign for Nigeria. You have the NIMN there, you have NIPR, you have the ACON, and some other professional organizations. So when they are not involved and you leave it in the hands of government, I dare say that most people in government are not properly equipped as professionals to handle national branding for a country like Nigeria. So long as they are the ones handling it, they will not be able to perform. And this has gone on over a long period of time, that it has transformed from an act to a system, and from a system to a culture. We are now in a situation where it has become a culture. It will really, really surprise you to know that when you travel outside this country, as a matter of fact, people are rewarded when they demarket Nigeria. I have been in conferences where people, Nigerians, speak against Nigeria, and they are hailed by the international community who actually sponsored their trips and their participation in that particular conference. And then you ask yourself, so these ones that are sponsoring Nigerians to come out and come and speak against Nigeria, what do they want to gain? And I can tell you that what they want to gain is that a Nigeria that is poor, a Nigeria that is perceived not to be able to do anything that is reasonable, is a Nigeria that has poor reputation. And so long as you have poor reputation, your risk will continue to increase. And so long as your risk is on the increase, the level of attractiveness of that nation will certainly be challenged. This is what it has been over a long period of time. So, to conclude, it is not extremely difficult to determine where the rains began to beat us. It began to beat us, like I have said, from the point of our beginning. The way we began, we didn't pay attention to where we ought to pay attention. And then we failed in the area of leadership. People became disappointed out of their unfulfilled expectations. And then it now became a culture to project Nigeria out of their frustrations in the language that Nigeria will not be favored. And so long as this has continued unchallenged, unremedied, unaddressed over a period of time as a strategic area of investment, so long as that has continued, Nigeria has been challenged and found problematic in that area. I would like to stop at this point. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, you are giving us a thesis on that. That is loaded. Very good. As much as I want to appreciate you for the insights you have given. One of the takeaway from that is the fact that some of the presentations, even from the leaders, rather than convincing, appears to be confusing the people. And we must have seen that quite a number of times recently, particularly as it pertains to the governance of the nation. As much as we do not want to dwell in the politics of the nation, but the fact remains that the actions and inactions of our leaders, either directly or indirectly, have the implication on all of us as citizens of that country. So while I will still come back to that with Dr. Niliaku, I want to ask Dr. Bolajugo, how as unethical communication, Doctor just gave an instance to even people that go to conferences. But let me share a personal lamentation. I was in a place where only two of us were Nigerians. And I met this beautiful lady. And before long, I don't know what took her into the issue of Nigeria, because at the point where we were, it had nothing to do with Nigeria. We were just there to have issues resolved based on issues of climate change and what have you. And this lady began to drift out about Nigeria, about the leaders, about how she wouldn't want to go back to Nigeria again. And I know one of the things that we were told while we were growing up is that when the person you are speaking to give you some signs, as a Nigerian, particularly as somebody from the Southwest, you should be able to interact with what that person is saying. But lo and behold, she went on firing, such that I got so much embarrassed. There was nothing I could tell other people. They were not ready to listen to me. They were ready to listen to her. So this evening, I'm asking you, how has unethical communication contribute to this national self-sabotage? Thank you.
On ethical communication, I think to start with, the explosion in the social media space has amplified that tremendously. But not just that. I think when it comes to Nigerians and just the situation that you described in terms of what a Nigerian diaspora said, it probably didn't just get there one day. They probably got there from a perspective of experience or what people have said. And they've also gone ahead to amplify it and to spread it amongst other people. Sometimes people are not even careful and just say it amongst foreigners and all of that. But how has it affected us? There's so many ways in which those negative amplification narratives, unethical communication, like you said, has affected us. As a nation, it's robbed us of how people perceive us from a trust point of view. Either by what people have said or the way people have behaved outside of this country, especially when we're interacting with expatriates or people outside of the country. So trust has been eroded to a very large extent. I mean, if you're one of those people that travel, you will find out that Once you get to the point of immigration, you're looking at your green passport and you know you're going to get some special attention. Most of the time, not positive attention, because when they see the green Nigerian passport, it's almost like a call to be attentive, to give extra attention to us. So that trust has actually is one of the major things that has affected us. It's affected us quite tremendously. And also what I also call national confidence as a nation, as a country. It's very interesting when you look at the psyche of a typical Nigerian. People that we know ourselves as Nigerian, and even people externally, what they've said of Nigeria. Nigerians are resilient. Nigerians have a never give up attitude. We're so kind of driven and passionate about anything that we believe in. But in contrast, you will find out that when it comes to our nation, Nigeria, such enthusiasm is not shared particularly. So people have this tendency to want to say, yes, I can do it, I can make it, but maybe not make it in Nigeria. And that's why you have this Japa syndrome and all of that. So there's part of the effect of this unethical communication, because people then think that what's there to wait for. And there's this common one that people tend to say, especially on social media. There's a news that has broken. The next thing you hear is Nigeria has happened to me, or Nigeria has happened to them. And that's so, that statement, as short as it is, speaks volumes. And so when people hear such, Nigeria has happened to them, it's almost like, oh, there's no hope. It just gives a feeling of hopelessness, as if, it's the worst thing that can happen to you. And so those are the kind of the feeling that it leaves people. And so that point of national confidence is eroded, and is one of the implications. There's a disconnect. So this is one person on one hand that has such high expectation or hope for himself or herself. But when it comes to the nation, it doesn't, he or she doesn't kind of align with that same sentiment. And so we have extraordinary personal ambition, but we're not able to cascade that or have that rub off on our country. So it weakens confidence from a national point of view. And when Dr. Neliaku was speaking earlier, he spoke about the way we've been we found ourselves, in terms of how did we find ourselves here. And you find that a lot of Nigerians, because of this unethical communication, are so we seem to align ourselves along ethnic biases or sentiment or religious. And unfortunately, those are things that people that have vested interest have also used to divide us further. Because rather than identify ourselves as Nigerians, you tend to have people say, I'm from this place or I'm from that place. So those kind of communication also helps people to find comfort or solace in their own ethnic affiliation. So I'm from this place, I find comfort there, rather than speak from a nationalist point of view. So generally, as a nation, we don't have what we call national purpose. Because when you look at it from a brand point of view, in this age of brand marketing, what you find out is that people are not just saying what is our vision from a company point of view, a corporate point of view. They're asking, what is the purpose of this company? What is the purpose of this brand? And basically what that means is that, why do we exist? Beyond making money, I'm speaking from a corporate point of view, why do we exist? And so if we overlay that from a national point of view, that's the question we need to ask ourselves as a nation also. Why do we exist as a nation? And so the absence of that national purpose, the shared national purpose, is also an implication of the unethical communication, because you have, I'll give you an example. So I'm Yoruba, and my children tend to make friends, because of the kind of schools that they've attended, from people across different ethnic groups in Nigeria. And so my son came home once and said, Mom, something interesting happened. I said, what? It was their visiting day, in boarding school. And one of his friends introduced him to our mom and said, oh, this is my friend. And the mom asked, what's your name? And he mentioned his name. He said, immediately, Mom, I could see the look on her face, the smile on her face, off. And it's almost like, oh, why is my daughter friends with this person from this particular thing? And these are things that also get carried on along generations if we're not very deliberate about it. So that's also because sometimes you also find us as parents, what we say at home about this nation, also our kids also pick it up. And they go on and on to amplify it and to say it again. So there's so many implications that we can have from this unethical communication. It damages our reputation as a nation. You can imagine having somebody in the office, your colleague in the UK, and as a Nigerian, you don't have anything good to say about your country. It's a damage to the reputation of Nigeria. And you find that these people, beyond even experiencing this nation, already have those perception, and except something significant happens, they go ahead to kind of just go on to believe that. But unfortunately, also like doctor said when he spoke earlier, some of this where we find ourselves have been born out of experiences. So when you look at it without any bias, you might say those people that have some of those perception, those that have experienced it have a point of view. But that point of view may not be strong enough for us to, generalize and believe that there's no hope in Nigeria or that there's nothing good that can come out of Nigeria. So it's just important that communication has to be very, very deliberate, measured, consistent, because there's no point in doing it now and leaving it and just coming back after a while when you have to start all over again. Thank you. I think I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you very much. I think furtherance to that, just as you mentioned, one of the things that has also come, just like you mentioned about Nigeria that happened to me, is more or less becoming a slogan now. And I think that's one of the things we should confront at this level. I've also observed, which is another funny trend. For example, if someone from Ibadan in Oyo State is appointed into an office, we are beginning to see a funny trend. Ibadan-born professor appointed this. And I begin to interrogate it. Why are we doing this? And I don't know, you are the specialist here. It begins to have a form of conflict with my intelligence. Why has it become Kogi-born politician appointed? Even when somebody was appointed as a minister for, don't let me mention the portfolio. I was surprised that every communication in that line were making reference to that. And I want to believe that's one of the things we should be looking at. And I'm happy that you have mentioned it in passing. I'm happy that you have mentioned in passing. And I think the people that are listening to us will also take a clue from this. When we begin to, arrogate or begin to think in the direction of ethnicity, we are creating some other levels of problems for the country. I think that was one of the things that Donald was trying to establish that took us to where we are now. So having said that, we need to have a change of mindset. We need to move from this level where we begin to see, if something has happened, unfortunately, things happen everywhere. Everywhere globally, things happen. But we tend to amplify what happens there. And that's what will take me back to Dr. Nelly Elko. Every information that people have about Nigeria, every negative information that people have about Nigeria are from Nigerians. Unfortunately, both the leaders and the followers cannot be exonerated from this. We have seen situations whereby some of our leaders, out of maybe their concerns or their patronage their political patronage at a point in time, have come out to say things that eventually dampen and reduce the image of Nigeria, leading to the erosion of our value as a people. What do we say about such leaders? What do we say about such followers? That for the fact that of a peanut that they want to benefit, they run down the country, even in public domain. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Somebody told me earlier today that every Nigerian carries a global broadcasting station in his pocket. And I asked to understand what he was trying to say. And he was just simply saying that Nigerians are the biggest broadcasters of the, excuse me, the poor Nigerian image that we have encountered. Let's put it this way. You have spokespersons that are not trained, but they are engaged as spokespersons because of their relationships sometimes with the principal. The principals that we have today, I can tell you that majority of them are not enlightened in the area of promotion, taking responsibility about the reputation of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I'm saying so because I've encountered a number of them. Sometimes what they do, what they say, they are not even conscious of it until it has dropped. I've had courses to speak to them, not once, not twice, not even 3 times, to say that every communication you make, so long as it is outside your person, is being domiciled somewhere, and it's either adding or subtracting to the reputation of Federal Republic of Nigeria. What am I saying? We have leaders who are not properly enlightened in the area of carrying themselves as ambassadors, reputation icons of Nigeria. And then they now go and hire people that they say they are running their reputation as spokespersons and so on and so forth. Again, they are not enlightened, they are not educated, because sometimes it is based on relationship. This person is my brother's son, or my brother's daughter, or my younger sister's, whatever it is. So you find a culture of the one who does not know, bringing the one who also does not know for two of them to work together. My mother gave me an adage many years ago that in the house of Mama Okonkwo, there are two knives. The one that has head is not sharp. The one that is sharp does not have head. So how on earth is anybody supposed to use such a knife to cut anything that is serious? If you hold the one that is sharp but doesn't have head, the tendency is that you may have blisters. If you go and use the one that has head but is not sharp, it will still give you a problem. So you find out that such people are not enlightened, they are not educated. We are not talking about academic education. We're talking about being educated in the carriage of their offices in a manner that such would add value to the reputation of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And then some of them travel outside this country and they become embarrassments to the nation. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I was special assistant to a minister of information, and we traveled to France. And then we had this other person holding very important position in government at federal level. We went into a restaurant to eat. And this man, as big as he was at that time in terms of the position he was holding, and of course he had sufficient resources to have looked after himself. If you saw the kind of food this man took because it was buffet, some of us felt ashamed for him. He took what he couldn't finish, and people were just amazed. And I'm tempted to mention the name, but I will not. because the kind of thing that happened that day and the level of work that we had to do to manage the situation was very, very devastating, to say the least. And you have such people, many of them, and they travel out, they engage because they have been given a position that they are not qualified to do. And they do not have the courtesy to say, this one is better than me. Let me go and learn from them. So you see that our leaders, and that's why in the beginning I spoke about leadership. And I said that when leaders don't take their position to do what they ought to do, the tendency is that they will fall for anything that is thrown at them. And ultimately, it bounces back to the image and reputation of Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because usually, when such things happen, they will not mention the name. They will say a Nigerian doctor, a Nigerian engineer, a Nigerian governor, a Nigerian minister. And over time, it becomes a serious challenge. And then those that they recruit to work for them, who do not know better than their principals, will not have the courtesy, like I said earlier, to challenge themselves to learn better. At the level of NIPR, we recognized this 3 years ago, and we introduced the Nigeria Spokesperson Summit, where we gather all spokespersons in Nigeria, private sector, public sector, civil society, to train them and show them how to do their work. Those of them who are humble enough are helped. But you find out the ones who feel that they know even better than you that is trying to help them, and you allow them, and you see the disaster. A case in hand is a young man called Ajuri Ngelale. I'm sorry I have to call name at this point, who came to be the spokesperson at the time of the president. And he kept falling from one problem to another. We tried to help. He wasn't humble enough to be helped. He was a broadcaster, not a reputation person, not a professionally trained spokesperson, not an image maker. He was just completely out of his league. And you saw all that he did, to the extent that he got to a point that he couldn't be helped and he had to be thrown out. But he could have been helped, but he didn't want to take help. This is just one out of several of them who are not properly trained. And they take up this responsibility. And because they don't understand the difference between nation building and corporate building, yes, you can help to project the image of your corporate organization, but you don't have to do it at the expense of your nation. This is where you have a significant difference between us and other people. For instance, you cannot find an American spokesperson who is lampooning America before an international community. In whatever he does, he holds his country first. The country comes first before any other thing. Yet, he's doing his work in that particular area that is being called. So I'm saying that, yes, we have this challenge. Yes, those that are given responsibility are not properly enlightened. They are not properly prepared. And sometimes they don't even want to be helped. There are some that have submitted themselves to be helped, and they have been helped. So, yeah, you may call it peanuts, but for those people, that thing that you are calling peanuts is a lifeline. And once a lifeline for them stands between them and the nation, they will go for their lifeline and leave the nation to suffer the challenge of what they say, how they say it, where they say it, and so on. I will stop at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ilya. As a rider to that question, I think one of the things that has also come up presently is a form of, what I would call, you observe that the spokespersons, as much as we don't want to go into that, but there is no way we can completely go away from that. You have found out that today there is this statement, tomorrow there is another statement trying to either validate or vacate the earlier statement. And rather than helping that earlier statement or achieving its purpose, there are instances whereby these statements also make it worse. And it shows, the pattern is becoming so obvious, such that it's calling for concern. And I want to believe that it's part of the efforts that you are making behind the scene to help mitigate some of these challenges we have as a country. Secondly, I want to believe that some of these individuals we are talking about have not been able to differentiate between the voice of a leader and the voice of an activist. For example, what you mentioned about America, it's not only in America. There are many countries, even countries that are not as as fair as Nigeria, that you don't see their leaders, making illustrations that will tarnish or dent the image of the country. So I want to believe after now that some of these conversations that you are having with them will begin to yield some fruits. And I want to also believe that maybe some of them will be humble enough. A man shall continue to learn until he dies. And if they are not ready to learn, that means if a man is not ready to learn, the man is saying that he does not want to be relevant again. So let's be hopeful that arising from this discourse, there will be issues that will come up and some of them will be able to learn. So now I will go to Dr. Bolajuko. Dr. Bolajuko, has been involved in marketing psychology. And she has been able to give us an illustration of some of the behaviors that took us to where we are. Now, we have all agreed that there has been an erosion of the confidence of the people, leading to the decline in the productivity of our people. Now, how can we begin to reverse this anomaly? It affects you, just like you have mentioned. You get to a place, you get to any airport, and somebody posted that recently on one of our platforms. You want to scrutinize you the moment that you are coming up with that passport. It puts you on hot seat. How can we begin to reverse this negative, attributes within the nation? Starting from the leadership. Yes, they will take training, those that want to take the training, but how can we begin to tinker with the mindset so that we can achieve something better for the nation even as we move forward? Thank you.
Okay, sorry, before I answer that question, there's something that I saw on the chat that I want to respond to, but I think that came out of the question that I answered last. In terms of when citizens feel that the leaders don't listen to them, and then they take such issues to the international world. So sometimes we see that in the news where Nigerians would say, Donald Trump, come and help us, and all of that. I mean, there are different scenarios that we've seen of that. And I'm going to express my personal view about this. I believe that it's very, very unpatriotic to take this stand in terms of what we call a cry for help. And when we go back to that question of how did we find ourselves here, I believe that such expectation that a country would come to save us is actually born out of the experiences of maybe our fathers or our grandfathers that have been passed on to us from a colonialization point of view. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. Yes, we don't exist in isolation of other countries, but I believe that our problems are problems. There have been times in the past where we thought a country was coming to save us and nothing happened, which still boils out to the fact that Nigerians will still solve the problem of Nigeria. And each of us have a responsibility. It does not mean that we're not holding our leaders accountable. We definitely should continue to do that. But it also means that we need to be able to have the discipline, both from a citizen's point of view and also from a leadership point of view, to be able to craft solutions for the problem of Nigeria. So that's that about that. To your question, you said, how can we begin to solve the problem that we find ourselves from a demarketing point of view? Is that the question that you asked, sir?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So I think still linking it back to the last point, as Nigerians, we need to be able to have a perspective or a mindset of constructive patriotism. It doesn't mean that we're blindly being patriotic, but it means that whilst holding our leaders accountable, we're still trying to build the confidence that we require as citizens of this country on how we can take this nation forward. And so that means that we're not going away with without criticizing when our leaders have not lived up to expectation, but we are doing it with a sense of responsibility and duty without necessarily over focusing on the negative, because there's a very high likelihood that we tend to focus on the biases and negativity, because that sells more basically and it drives more attention. As human beings, we tend to react more to threats rather than opportunities. And so from that perspective, we tend to focus on what hasn't worked well. So back to the point in terms of what can we do as citizens of this nation to be able to overcome where we find ourselves from a demarketing point of view, the erosion of our equity, national equity. Nigeria, like any other country, from a nation point of a nation building, branding and building point of view, needs to be able to find authentic stories that we can tell about ourselves. For those people that watch Premier League and some other football, you see the way nations are advertised. Even if you go to some countries, some countries in Africa, they have very, very concerted nation building platforms. And Dr. Neliaku mentioned that we we stop start without any consistency in the approach that we do our nation branding. But it's very important that we anchor our nation building on one particular on a particular proposition that defines us as Nigerians. And I want to also link that to earlier points I raised in terms of what is our purpose as a nation. And if I want to look at it from a marketing point of view, I'm asking myself, if I want to build a brand, the first question to ask is, why does this brand exist? And so why does Nigeria exist? And what would be that proposition, that unique proposition that makes Nigeria authentically Nigeria? And so we need to be able to craft that story authentically. It's not about building because over time, what we find out is that propaganda has been the order of the day. Shoved down our throats just to believe. But without authenticity, without transparency, it's almost difficult to believe such stories. So Nigerians are not, they won't respond to propaganda. What Nigerians will respond to is authentic storytelling that is built on transparency that they can see and they can feel. So it's about acknowledging the fact that, yes, we have our issues, we have our challenges like every other country have their issues. But then what are we good at that we can actually showcase? It's important also from a transparency point of view to show the progress that we have achieved. And that's still part of the storytelling that we're telling about our country, Nigeria. We're not there yet. We have our challenges, but we should be able to demonstrate. And so that's why the lack of belief also comes in from a citizen's point of view when there's no belief. Once there's no belief, it's difficult to have any meaningful engagement and conversation. So authentic storytelling from a national point of view is very important. There's a lot of things that are going well with Nigerians that we can actually showcase. And that's where building positive narratives about our nation, about our people. A lot of us would attest to the fact that you see some innovations being done globally. You have breakthroughs in medical science. You have, what we export out of Nigeria, our music, our fashion, entrepreneurship, tech, and all of that. There's a lot of stories we can tell about Nigeria deliberately that actually can showcase Nigeria to the world. That's one way in which we can actually showcase what has happened and that can actually drive attention to Nigeria. And so those success stories, those success-based narratives that we can actually showcase and give visibility to are some of the ways in which we can actually begin to rebuild Nigeria. And then there's also the bit around citizens advocacy. The lack of belief is quite deep, but I do not believe that is insurmountable. So how do we then begin to find advocates for the nation? It's not about going to the US and looking for lobbying organizations or people that are going to pay millions and millions of naira for it. Not about that. We need to be able to do this inside out. And inside out means that the citizens of Nigeria have to be able to serve as ambassadors and advocates for brand Nigeria. So it's about showcasing those positivity around Nigeria, what we have that the world can buy. I'm not sure which of the matches, but they played Rema's song. And you needed to see how the stadium erupted just by that music. And that is an export from Nigeria. That is an export that the entire world knows about. So we have values, we have assets that we can actually showcase out there. So it's about building that brand advocacy amongst citizens that would actually help to amplify our stories. And we have a lot of young population. I mean, about 70% of Nigerian population are about less than 30 years old. So it means that the people that are on social media morning, day, and night are within that age range. How can Nigeria leverage that youthful population in a way that can serve as reputation ambassadors for the country? And it has to be deliberate. So all these things are not, if there's sincerity to be able to drive this, there's intentionality, there's consistency. The changes might take a while, but we'll begin to see those changes. And Nigerians can also take that sense of pride in knowing that this is a nation that I'm proud about. The problem that we found ourselves as Nigerian is the fact that we have information gap. Information from the point of view of this is what we're doing. You mentioned policy somersault. This is something that has been announced as a policy. Why has it happened? It's part of the storytelling. Nigerians are smart people, and so they need to understand why did we get to this point of this policy? Is there context being provided for Nigerians to even understand the direction of government? And once progress and give accounts or have a form of accountability that Nigerians can see. If Nigerians can see the process, trust the process, see steps here, little steps here, growth here and there, then we'll be able to drive believability amongst Nigerians again. And so it's very important for us to know that it's not a one-time fix. It didn't take us one day to get here. But I believe that with some of these things and with consistency, we can begin to drive impact and begin to see the growth in the reputation of our country. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think one of the major things we'll take away from that, yes, there are problems. It can be reversed. And this is one of the efforts in that direction. And the agencies of government are also having initiatives towards reversing some of these challenges. And I want to mention this before we go to Dr. Neliaku. Today, if the government comes up with a policy, for example, when the government came up with the issue of giving students loan or what have you, people, in fact, there are so many people that some of us have to encourage to marry into that vision. That some other people are benefiting from it, but some other people felt, no, it is a ploy, it is this, it is that. Secondly, even when there are policies, for example, if the government makes a policy today, publish it, some of these news, except beyond people like you, people like me, Most people do not count some of these news to be anything. But lo and behold, when you have a news, a negative perspective, maybe about maybe a lecturer somewhere that has taken money from a student or has slept with a student or what have you, you begin to see that, and that's what I think she was trying to say about negative news being valued more than the positive news. And I challenged someone, and the person told me that that's how it happens everywhere. But I've been privileged to be on platforms of some other, places, and I've not seen it that way. How come that even our social media today values negative news, values issues that were contrary to our, to our beliefs some years back, values such issues today, such that when issue of national concern even come up, they are played down. Nobody, like, for example, the discourse you are having today, very valid, very important to reshape, the narrative about our country. But lo and behold, with your voice of honor, with your voice of integrity, many people will not want to interact with that. But when it comes to other mundane issues, it appears to gain traction. What can we do about this? Thank you. That's for Dr. Niliaku.
I thought that you were still making comments.
No.
Well, interestingly, I will give a background before, if I understood your question well, because I was enjoying the narrative you were bringing. If I understand your question well, you were talking about, please, let me not guess. Can you just take that again, please? Can you take
Okay,
that
thank you
question
very
again?
much.
Yeah.
Today, if the president, okay, let's give an example of the fake DG.
Yeah.
You can see how that news was everywhere. Everybody was changing the news.
Okay. I get it
But
now.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
if the government comes up with a policy on something that they have done that appears to be positive, it doesn't attract attention like that.
Yeah. Okay. I will take it from two angles. First, I would say that governments across time have not succeeded in effective policy marketing. There is something that is called policy marketing, and is an area where we are deficient as a nation concerning government. Let's go back to where we are coming from. We came out of a system where we were given information as a pattern of communication. And so during the colonial time, you were meant to just be informed. Your opinion was not counted. It was not necessary how you felt about anything whatsoever. Information was just stuffed in your mouth, and you were to receive it and obey the command, so to say. And we grew up with this mentality, and we have continued to use information as a portfolio. But you know that information is not communication, because in communication, it is my opinion will certainly count. But in information, you don't need my opinion. You just inform me, and I'm supposed to accept it. So most times, what government will do is to inform, not to communicate. Although things are beginning to gradually change now, because some agencies of government are now engaged or involved in stakeholder engagement and so on and so forth across the country, across their programs, but they have not been able to emphasize very seriously that aspect of policy marketing. Again, it's very important for us to understand from this foundation that I have given, the way our journalism was structured from the point of foundation was based on activism. We have been activists, which was the foundation because of where we are coming from. We fought for our independence, we fought for our freedom, we fought for our rights, and then we emerged a sovereign nation out of these struggles. And because of the point I made in the beginning, poor leadership, we have continued with that mindset of a struggling people who must struggle to have things done. Secondly, whatever is not positive will certainly spell arising from the operating environment of our journalism. Let me put it that way. Journalism. If today, Kayode, you gave a very hot bite to a dog, it will be big news. But if a dog bites you, it's no news. Why? Because, I mean, dogs are expected to bite somebody. So you now see that sometimes because government does not make deliberate efforts to push their information in a manner that it will be acceptable to the citizens, citizens don't trust that information. So it comes back to the issue that Dr. Bolajoko made earlier, the challenge of trust. It's a big question mark. Citizens don't trust their leaders. So whatever it is, they perceive that their leaders are not genuine in what they are bringing on board. So they take it from that perspective until proven otherwise. Number three, a situation where those that are given the responsibility as journalists are expected to become public relations practitioners. It will not work. Last month or so, we were on another platform where we discussed journalism is not public relations. And we came out of that conversation to say, yes, indeed, very clearly, that the two have different orientations. The journalist is trained to publish whatever it is and put it out there without thinking of the implication, reputational implication of that publication. But the public relations person, before he keeps or drops anything out, he considers the implication. And I'll give you a particular case study. This happened on Thursday last week. The Nigerian Customs was having its annual public relations conference, and they invited students from universities in Port Harcourt. And after the program, they were to have a dinner in the evening. And the young lady who was announcing said that students were not invited to the dinner. And the students were already feeling agitated. Okay, we are good to come for your conference, but we are not good to eat with you. Suddenly, the public relations officer took it up immediately and said, no, it is because we do not want you to stay out at night. That's why we said you should not come for the dinner, because You have to go through all manner of processes and so on and so forth. So it's in your own interest. The president of NUJ, who was sitting with me, said, this is what a journalist would say. Journalists will just publish it later. Say, you are not invited to the dinner. I said, yes, but you know, a public relations person will do exactly what the PRO has done, because there is a way to handle even difficult tasks that could have generated a lot of problems. What are the issues with our leaders? Sometimes some of our leaders don't even know how to communicate. They don't know the issue of responsible communication. And once they drop it on the laps of the journalist will push it out the way it is, because that is what helps them to sell their news. That's what helps them to sell their newspapers. That is what helps them to remain relevant. So until we embrace the concept of development communication, we will not be able to solve some of these problems. Because if it is development communication, before you communicate, you think twice. To what extent is what I am about to push out contributing to the development of Federal Republic of Nigeria? Or to what extent is it undermining the development? But so long as we are embracing effective communication in place of development communication, then there will be a problem. Everybody is interested in strategic communication, but we are now beginning to counsel them that we have to go beyond strategic communication. We have to go beyond effective communication to embrace development communication, because that is what suits us as a nation. We are still developing. We cannot just embrace everything the way it comes and so on, because it is being done like that elsewhere. So, to conclude, yes, the journalists will always be journalists, because that's how they are trained, and that's why they are journalists. If we expect journalists to do the work of public relations people, it will not work. However, we now have a generation, and I'm really delighted to say this, we now have a generation of journalists who are also public relations officers. They have now embraced the training as public relations officers, and what that has done for them is that it has given them a balanced perspective to handling issues, managing information, as the case may be. That is the direction we should be going. Bringing our journalists to a place where they can balance things in the interest of the nation, and then for their profession to also prosper, because they have bills to pay at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that beautiful one. If we are talking about the past, definitely the past is rubbing on the present, and it happens to be one of the major challenges we have here. But I think it has come to a time that we begin, to divorce ourselves from negative narratives of the past. For example, something happened some years back while we were in the university. I happened to have served as the president of the student union, and there are so many things that we would do. But later on, when we came out of the university, and I had a different role, and I told some of the students that some of the things we did apparently were a function of, military interregnum, which shaped our orientation. But for some years now, and I want to believe that also affected journalism. But some years now, we have been in democracy, nascent, we can still call it nascent democracy, just as we are rightly pointed out. And we should begin to embrace things that will shape our country, that will shape, positive mindset of our country, that will build our country, such that everyone can be, on the same page towards moving the country forward. We have rightly identified the challenges by the media professionals. And we will now want to look at how the media professionals can help in reversing this national demarketing. And I want to put this across to Dr. Ms. Bolajuko. As a brand rebranding manager, how do you think our media professionals, beginning from now, I read an article yesterday, and the person was challenging, did you call it Ibadan, Lagos media professionals and what have you? Now, let us look at it holistically. How can the media professionals play major roles in reversing this national demarketing? How can we begin to feed the minds, the subconsciousness of our people with issues that can drive our nation positively? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That question actually triggered something. At a point, I asked myself, some of our journalists around here, what really is their role in terms of brand Nigeria generally, both within and externally? And why do I say that? You could be on a segment and you see active demarketing of Nigeria on national TV. And like we said, we're not saying that we're the best nations in the world. But if you overlay that with what happens in some other places, not like they do not challenge their leaders, they do. They challenge policies, but you see from a very constructive and with a spin on the nation itself rather than castigating. So I think the first thing that I would recommend for our journalists is to understand the role that they have. There's a platform that they have, there's a voice that they have that's beyond the four walls of wherever they're broadcasting, travels very far, either on national TV, either on social media, Twitter, or any other place, to serve as, to give balanced perspective. Balanced perspective from the point of view of, if things have worked well, let's amplify. There's a way that you would find a journalist talk about, we just finished the World Cup. I read some narratives about the Argentine team from their national news, and I was like, wow, this same World Cup that we all watched, if you didn't watch anything online and you just read that, you're going away with everything worked well. And that's what they probably committed themselves to do, to say, we are advocates of this brand and we need to showcase this brand. Not one, not two platforms. In fact, at a point, some international news were carrying the stories to say, this is what these guys are saying about their country. And of course, I'm not really one for blind patriotism, but at the same time, there are so many things that are positive about the station that we can showcase. Yes, we can beat ourselves internally when some things are not right, but we should be able to have a position where we can balance conversation, where we can showcase Nigerian. I've seen situations where even journalists are calling for foreign countries to come and help us. And so we need to, there needs to be really a reorientation on how we address some of these things, because one of those experiences might not happen to even any of those leaders that we're trying to castigate, or the nation, it's the name of the nation, but we as citizens are the ones that go out there and experience it. You tell somebody, I had an experience, I was in one of the East African countries, and it was breakfast, and I was the only Nigerian in that group. And my easiest default would have been to go and sit by myself and have breakfast. But I felt it wasn't proper. So I went to sit on a table with some people that were already there. And I introduced myself to them. And the moment that they heard I was from Nigeria, the conversation went quite animated. Oh, you're from Nigeria? Oh, this, and they started saying different things and all of that. They've never been to Nigeria, but these are things that they've heard. Of course, some of them with experiences too. So it's also part of what we also go out there to showcase about our nation, not just about the journalists. We as citizens also have a role to play in what we go out there and showcase, the behaviors that we showcase to external people. So basically, just in a nutshell, I think our journalists should have a mandate, understand that they have the mandate to project this country positively when we have news and stories to drive that. And let's not adopt a very haphazard strategy to our communication. It has to be concise, it has to be strategic, it has to be deliberate in how we showcase Nigeria. Where things are not right, yes, we call it out. But in terms of projecting the positivity, which are enormous, a lot of Nigerians are doing things well. Even some of the policies are working. Maybe not everything is working, but whatever it is, I believe that we should take out emotions, because sometimes we find that some of these conversations become very emotional, and it depends on which side you are. Sometimes our journalists sound like politicians in their position and the way that they carry the news or the story. So let's take out emotions out of it and ensure that we're given a fair assessment of how things are, and also be deliberate in projecting Nigeria externally to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. We can fight within, we can have issues. In fact, there will always be issues, but we must always prioritize the integrity of our nation. And that is what Dr. Bolajoko has termed as strategic communication and strategic developments. That has been a wonderful conversation today. We want to quickly take one or two questions from people that have dropped their questions on the chat box. We'll read, this one is a comment. This one is a comment, it's a long one, but I will try to quickly go through it in view of our limited time. This person has said both are a function of trust. When citizens do not trust their leaders and the government is doing bad job in communicating, an example is when UK wanted to change immigration law. They put it out, allowed people to give their opinions, and even till now, not all has been approved. Our government just says this is what we are doing without even trying to let them know why those changes are required. Where subsidy comes to mind. That's one. I will take another one so that we can take them together. Number two, this person says, why I still believe Nigeria's immediate priority should be to address the structural issues that have eroded public trust first. What practical role should Nigerians in the diaspora play in shaping Nigeria's national brand? As a rider to that question for Dr. Niliaku, and I know you must also have come across this, when Nigerians in the diaspora come to social media, at times, this is my personal opinion, many of us enjoyed some benefits, education in Nigeria was relatively cheap, and some begin to talk as if they never benefited anything from Nigeria, whereas they grew up to become medical doctors, they grew up to become this, they grew up to become that in Nigeria. And now we have this question. Marrying this question with this narrative, what is your position on this issue? Thank you. What should the Nigerians in diaspora, what role should they be playing in shaping Nigeria's rebranding efforts?
Thank you very much. Nigerians in diaspora, first, I would want to acknowledge them because we have a very robust diaspora community out there. That's one. Two, it's also important to emphasize that Nigerians in diaspora have contributed immensely to the economy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As at, I will use the figure that when I was still working on that, as at 2016, the remittances from Nigerians in diaspora was about $20 billion with a population of over 17 million people. That's a major contribution to the national wealth. Nigerians in diaspora also have done well in terms of promoting the image of Nigeria, and we must acknowledge this. I was in the UK sometime in June. Yeah, in June. And I had the opportunity of meeting the Nigerian High Commissioner in UK. And I was briefing him that Nigeria will be hosting the World Public Relations Forum. And in the course of that discussion, he told me that we have 15,000 Nigerian medical doctors who are enlisted in the National Health Insurance Scheme of Britain. 15,000 who are very qualified. He went further to say that we have 20,000 nurses, professional nurses, who are listed. And then he said that we have 6 Nigerians serving in a British Parliament. 6 Nigerians. And we came out of that meeting convinced that Nigerians in diaspora constitute a major plank of reputation icons and reputation ambassadors that we could use. Now, yes, some of them are not happy with Nigeria because of where they are coming from, because of what they read, some of which are fake news. They are not real, they are not genuine. And I have encountered some of them, I've engaged with some of them until they went and fact-checked and then discovered that it was not true, it was fake news. And then they disowned that information. But unfortunately, they will not go back to rewrite what they wrote about Nigeria and that it was not genuine news. So I believe that we have a very powerful diaspora population that are out there. And what is now required is how do we harness them? I want to commend Dr. What is that her name? Oh, the lady that is in charge of Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa. I want to commend her for the great work that she has done in coordinating the diaspora population and even encouraging them to come home, to come and invest in Nigeria. I have seen some Nigerians, and this will shock you. I have seen some Nigerians who campaigned against a foreigner coming to Nigeria.
Yeah.
They threatened, not threat, rather. They cast a lot of doubt and fear into the hearts or into the heart of this lady that she may be killed in Nigeria. And of course, they claimed that they were doing it out of love for this foreigner that wanted to come. But you know what? This foreigner insisted on coming to Nigeria. And when she came, she was shocked what she saw in Nigeria, how she was received right from the airport throughout her tour in Nigeria. That was when she now told us how Nigerians discouraged her from coming to Nigeria and how she insisted to come and how she came and felt happy. Then she now became the brand ambassador, telling other people, posting things. And I don't know if some of us saw it in an Egyptian, how she was now posting things all over the world that people must come to Nigeria. So what am I saying? You have found 2 sides of the coin. Those who are in the diaspora helping to promote the image, the reputation of Federal Republic of Nigeria, who are doing so well as professionals. And then you also have the other people who left Nigeria in anger and they have not forgiven Nigeria. And they are still angry in their communication, in whatever they are doing, and so on. So it's like that. And you know what? You are not likely to have a perfect diaspora community because people are coming from different backgrounds, different orientations, different ideas of what Nigeria means to them. which brings me to the last point I would like to make here. And I'm glad that Dr. Bayajai emphasized the greatness of this nation. What we have not done is to work with our diaspora population to take on the unique selling points of Nigeria, to begin to deepen it across board. I was speaking with a Nigerian living in South Africa, this same South Africa, and he told me, he said, you know, with all these things going on, South Africa remains, for me, that's for him now, a very good country. And I said, why? Why are you saying so? He gave me his narratives when he came in about 20 years ago, and how he made sure that he followed his documentation. Everything was done perfectly, and he became a citizen right at the point of time. This man never suffered any of the things that other people faced, because he went through it very well. But that is his own story. We now have others who were not as fortunate as he was in documenting themselves, and they are facing all these problems. So I will say this, that Nigeria remains Africa's largest economy. Those are things we must give to our diasporans. Nigeria remains a technology powerhouse in Africa. These are things we must give to our diasporans. Nigeria remains one of the fastest growing startup nations on earth. These are stories about Nigeria we must tell. Nigeria remains a home to respected professionals. I've talked about that. Nigerians are fantastic. They are leaders in entertainment, in literature, in entrepreneurship, in whatever you can think of. What am I saying? We have so much that we can make available to those in the diaspora, because sometimes they are short of information and the tools that are required to market Nigeria. It is our responsibility to now back them up and support them, that they will have more than enough of what they require to market Nigeria. I will stop at this point because I'm looking at the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very loaded. We have a very robust diaspora, and we appreciate the fact that they are all coming from different backgrounds. And we cannot have a perfect, just as there is nothing that is perfect anyway, we cannot have a perfect diaspora. But he has also gone a step further to appreciate the efforts of uh, Mrs. Abike Dabiri for what she is doing in that in ensuring that we have a formidable diaspora. And I know last week she also engineered something very fantastic for Nigeria, bringing some medical doctors to Nigeria. And the president has directed that those medical doctors should be given a letter of commendation. And I know some of those things will not find their ways, into the media as soon as possible, but we are getting there. And we want to also appreciate the effort of your organization. And it's good that despite the challenges around both the Nigeria of marketing and the NIPR, we are doing very well, contributing, to the people both at home and in diaspora. And it's a beautiful one to have an opportunity to know some of these noble efforts of the organizations. We really appreciate that. Now, what word to Dr. Bodadu, what word will you want to leave with Nigerians both at home and in diaspora? What word will you want will you want us to have in our mind? Either we are sleeping, we are swimming, we are walking. What will be the word you want us to to have as our watchword, even as we move forward from now?
Thank you. So my word to Nigerians home and abroad is that the brand Nigeria belongs to all of us. and it's our responsibility to do everything to ensure that the negative perception that Nigeria has now in some respect is in our actions, in our contribute to either building Nigeria as a country or bringing down Nigeria as a country. So it's not about leaders alone. I always say that in my view, citizens have a big role to play in building up this nation. And so whatever we do, we should behave in a way that someone meeting a Nigerian at the same for the first time would expect. So I'm going out of Nigeria, I'm in Nigeria, and I'm meeting a foreigner. What would be the expectation in terms of good behavior? That should be what we should live as Nigerians in our utterances, in our behaviors. So basically, building Nigeria is not just other people's job. It is our each and every one of us to build Nigeria up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We must all collectively build Nigeria. Dr. Neliako, what's the one branding lesson you want Nigerians to take from henceforth? One branding
Well,
methodology, one branding lesson you will encourage every Nigerian to adopt, even as we chart a new course for Nigeria.
well, I would like every Nigerian to go home feeling very proud of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Nigeria is a great country. I am proud to be a Nigerian. I will not accept any other citizenship because I know that Nigeria is a great country. And I keep telling people that Nigeria will be fixed in my lifetime, not after I'm gone. In my lifetime, I will see this country fixed and this country take its place as a great country on earth. That's my stand. That's what I believe. And that's what I am working with others to see that this nation in our lifetime gets what it deserves, the greatness that God has written for us. Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. You always got me emotional with that, Dr. Neliako. That's very great. But it appears as if I've not had that for a long time. That's very, very, very great. You always go, and in our very eyes, Nigeria shall be better. Dr. Bolajuko, we really appreciate you for coming. We really appreciate Dr. Eliaku. And I know one of these days I will still want to hear that Okonkwo story again. I will still want you to speak about that Okonkwo story again. I think I'm becoming one of your disciples. That was a wonderful one. Dr. Bolajuko, we really appreciate you. Today, ladies and gentlemen, from
But
wherever
before
you
we
are
go,
watching us from.
sorry, moderator, before we go, I would like to use this opportunity to really, really thank Dr. Bola Joko Bayo Ajayi for finding the time to be part of this conversation. It wasn't convenient for her, but once it's about Nigeria, she takes it very seriously. And I'm saying so because of the partnership that exists between the National Institute of Marketing of Nigeria, the Advertising Practitioners Council, no, ACON, Advertising Registration Council of Nigeria, and the
Regulatory,
Nigerian
sir.
regulatory, sorry, and the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. And I think it's important to mention this, that these three organizations that are involved in integrated marketing communication came together to form a partnership for
Yeah.
Nigeria, for the industry, for the ecosystem. We hope and we expect that other professional organizations and groups will copy this because there is no other thing greater than Nigeria. We must not continue to remain in our silos, but the time has come for organizations, professional groups to come together to take the matter of Nigeria very seriously. So I want to thank her for being who she is. My brother Akon is not here with us because he's currently on transit and so on. I hope I have not given any impression as if I'm the one who convened the meeting. I'm not. But I just thought I should make this point. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for providing that very useful information. I must commend Dr. When you see people that love Nigeria, they, how did I get to? Let me quickly, I was trying to rush with time, but let me quickly provide this information. I listened to Dr. Niliaku last week. Was it last week? No, 2 weeks ago. And that was the first time I was listening to him. I really enjoyed every bit of it, just as he has done today. And we want to thank him for bringing Dr. Bolajuko, who has not also diminished the value of this discourse. This is the first time I'm listening to her. And, when I saw, I've read so much about her from the background, and that informed the profile we presented. Very beautiful profile from Dr. Bolajuko Bayo Ajayi, very beautiful. And that she agreed to come. That's how you get to know lovers of this nation, Nigeria. Some of us, even when we are not busy, we form the fact that we are busy. But that is an individual that have provided information for us today. The same thing we had during the first edition of this program. In fact, the person that took the first edition flew to Canada some few hours before the program and still ensured that, in fact, it was because of him that we had to shift, and that's why we have now had 6 to 8. The program was supposed to be 4 to 6, but because it will be flying, we shifted it to 6 to 8, and that's why 6 to 8 has come to stay. So we want to appreciate both of you. You are doing very well for the nation. And I'm inspired. Some of the things we do, people will wonder, why are these guys doing this? At times you even ask yourself, but listening to people like you today, as we engineer us to do more. We engineer us to do more. That people are still out there, believing in the project in Nigeria. Yes, we continue to interrogate issues. Yes, there will continue to be issues. But when the issues come, we will know that at the front burner is the issue of the integrity of the nation, cohesiveness of the nation, and progress of the nation. So today, on behalf of the chairman of our advisory committee, I want to thank you. And I want to thank every participant that has joined today. Today, we have confronted one of the most pressing communication challenges facing our country, Nigeria. It's been on my mind for months, for years. I begin to wonder, why are we drifting this direction? And I'm more than satisfied that today we have had people that are eminently qualified, people that have resources to dish out to us, to explain to us how we can navigate out of this situation. And today we have confronted this, and we are believing that from the several lenses that we have looked at this situation, particularly as reflective pessimism affects us as individuals, both at home and in the diaspora, that will begin to move from the level of hopelessness to being hopeful. And we'll begin to move from suspicious narratives to national achievements, which is one of the things Dr. Bolajuko has reached out to us today. So our distinguished discussant, Dr. Bolajuko Ajayi and Dr. Ike, have provided deep authoritative insights that eliminate both the roots of the problem and how we can get out of it. So they have not had come here to tell us the problems. They have come here to give us the solution. And that's why we want to commend them. On behalf of every of us that believe in the project Nigeria, wherever you may be watching from, either from Canada, I can see some of our people from Canada, UK, USA, we know that very day, from this balanced, confident, and responsible national discourse, we'll be able to chart a new course for Nigeria. And we know that tonight their contributions have strengthened our collective understanding and enriched the national conversation. To every participant we joined from within Nigeria and across the world, we want to say thank you for lending your voice to this discourse. And the strength of this platform, we want to tell you, lies in you. So by the grace of God, next month, 6 to 8 p.m., we'll be coming around with another topical issue. Sincerely speaking, I would have loved to hear them more. I'm beginning to fall in love with their presentation. But because variety is the spice of life, we'll bring up another topical issue next month by the grace of God. But be rest assured that you are going to see their faces again. Be rest assured that you are going to hear their beautiful voices again. Be rest assured that you are going to hear their wonderful narratives again. So on behalf of Valley View Network Media, I thank you, Dr. Nelly Aku, for facilitating this. On behalf of Valley View Network Media, I want to thank Dr. Abolajoko for making herself available to contribute to national development. It is a ministry on its own. I've seen some of the consultancy and some of the things that you also do, and which shows that you are committed to national development. And I want to believe God will continue to strengthen you. And just like Dr. Neliaku, today I would name him as Saint Neliaku as proposed. In our very eyes, we will see the good of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in giving a wonderful salute to these wonderful Nigerians who has helped us today. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day from every one of us. Thank you very much. Dr. Nliaku, we thank you. Dr. Bolajoko, we thank you. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you for
around.
having me.
God
Thank you.
bless you.
Well done.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Yeah.